Oh, good. Okay, awesome. Um, hey, oh my gosh. Hey, aloha, Love Tribe. What is up? Yay. Guess who I have in the house with me? I have somebody here who is making people understand in the most fun way how Bitcoin works with hands-on, obviously with development, with coding, and she's got a new project that she's working on. And I'm so excited to have Nifty Nei with me. Welcome, beautiful. How are you?
Hey Valerie, I've been better. I've been a little sick this week, so I do look a little tired, but I'm doing good. We're doing good. Getting ready for a really amazing event that I think we're gonna have in Brazil next month. So I'm really excited about that, as well as trying to just get 2025 planned, man. There's a lot of stuff happening.
Dude, there's so much stuff happening. When you told me about your calendar for the year, I was like, okay, I guess I got to start getting my calendar out too. But let's like for my audience, I know a lot of people already know who you are, but I would love for you to kind of give a backstory of like who you are and how you got into Bitcoin and like what's your mission right now? Like, how are you helping move the needle
Mm.
forward on Bitcoin and Bitcoin adoption and what you're doing? Because I think you are somebody who's you're like the double unicorn in my opinion, because first of all, a lot of women are not in Bitcoin, and so yay, you're a woman in Bitcoin. You're an
That's true.
entrepreneur in Bitcoin, so that's even another thing, and you're a developer and a coder, and so you're very 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 rare. Like you really are. You're like a rare diamond. So I would love for everybody to understand, what your dream is, what your mission is, and how you got here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I've always been like, I mean, I ended up in Bitcoin because I've always been really curious. I really like learning about how systems work, and Bitcoin's just such a new, interesting, different system than any other system that exists in the world, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
um, I had friends that would explain. So I got into coding kind of on my own. Like, I mean, I say that, but like my mom also like went to school for programming, and my older sister did programming, and I was the middle kid who was a little bit of a black swan and didn't want to be a coder or an engineer, and so I went to school for business and liberal arts. So I studied languages and I studied like accounting in college and not how computers work. But that like eventual curiosity kind of comes back at you, and I really like technology because of the way that it like can change the way that people interact, or like your ability to move through the world. Um, One of the first projects that I tried building on my own was it was an Android app for the São Paulo subway, because I wanted to be able to, when I got to a subway station, have a map on my phone so I would know where to leave the subway, so I wouldn't have to look like I was lost and maybe get in trouble. That sounds
Right, right,
weird.
right, right. And was
It
this
was like,
before you were a Bitcoiner?
oh yeah, this was back in 2010, 2011,
Oh,
so a
wow,
long
okay.
time ago now. Yeah. And man, it's funny to think I could have gotten into Bitcoin at that time, but didn't, it was like a um yeah, but I found out about Bitcoin from my hacker friends in New York. I was living in New York, going to this place called Hacker School. I guess I stayed in New York. Anyways, but they would tell me about how Bitcoin worked, and they'd explain how proof of work mining works, and which is just like the most weird, revolutionary thing, if that makes sense. There's like literally nothing else in the world like how Bitcoin works with proof of work.
Yeah.
It is a one of one. You call me a unique diamond unicorn. Bitcoin is the same way. Maybe that's what attracted me to it. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
totally.
Um, but yeah, but I didn't really get into Bitcoin until I got hired at Cash App to work on their back end. It's like just to
Oh,
be a
cool.
normal engineer. I didn't want to do. I worked in Android for about half a decade. I was an Android engineer on like product stuff, which is really more like product focused building. I worked at Etsy for a while. That was really fun. Um, I got bored of writing Android, so I was looking for my next thing, and I got hired at Cash App. And it just so happened that they were putting engineers onto their Bitcoin team, so that became my opportunity to learn more about Bitcoin as a protocol worked.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and then I managed very quickly to figure out how to send an email to the right person so that I could get hired at Blockstream to work on Lightning. So then I worked on Lightning for about 5 years now. Yeah, so I've been in Bitcoin since 2018 now, officially. I bought my first Bitcoin on the Cash App at I think $15,000, and then immediately watched it plunge back down to 3K. And you're like,
Oh
oh,
god, dude. What
I
was
know,
that
you're like,
like? I mean, I haven't been in Bitcoin that long. This will be like I'm going on it'll be almost 4 years now, and, so I didn't have that, like, oh, getting for 3,000, 10,000, 5,000. Like, that must have been like a monster, like, what the heck?
I mean, it was a job, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, it's definitely a passion and a intellectual curiosity kind of thing, but it was also like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like, I wasn't like, it's not like I went up. If I had gone all in on Bitcoin, I'd have more Bitcoin than I do now. But I think that's normal for most people when they say that, right?
Yeah, of course.
I think it's one of those things where it was like, I bought it because it was like a thing that I could hold in the Cash App. And like, I don't know. I do remember, so I was working at Blockstream by September 2018, and people at Blockstream had been through more cycles, right? This was like the third cycle at this point. And by your third cycle, you kind of figure out what's going on. But it takes a long time, I think, for you. It takes like a long time to like see how those cycles work and what it means when it crashes and when it goes up and that kind of stuff. So I was like completely clueless, if that makes sense. I was just like, I don't know. It was like kind of funny. You know, you buy like $5,000 worth of Bitcoin and it goes to like, crashes all the way down to being worth like almost nothing. You're like, oh, that was fun. All right.
You're like, "Okay, here's the
I guess
craps
I'm,
table."
yeah, exactly. And it was like, well, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm still working in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's really cool. I was never really there for the money aspect of it. And the fact that the price went up and down was always just kind of this like novel, like almost like something that everyone else was always talking about. But like for me, it was just like, well, okay, like, all right. I mean, the protocol is still the same. The
And what
price
does
on
it
the
mean to you,
protocol.
like for people who are listening who may not, who might be kind of new to Bitcoin or, um, they're nervous about the up and down and the fluctuation, or am I in here too late? Like, what does a Bitcoin network mean to you?
That's a good question. For me, it's really, and the reason that like, I got into it and I'm really passionate about it, but particularly Lightning, like, um, Lightning in particular, I think is really good at this is like the ability to do transactions peer to peer digitally. So like digital cash, right? Like
Yeah,
we are losing cash. Cash does not exist. Like paper cash is not a thing that we as like citizens of almost any nation have access to anymore. You can't travel out of the country with it. Like, they have these like strict like $10,000 cash rules. Like
yeah,
your ability to like give it to people. And this world is so digital now. Like so much of how we interact with each other and do exchange and commerce and like our markets are all digital, right? Like Amazon's the biggest marketplace in the world probably, and it's digital. And
yeah,
so when you're making payments for Amazon goods, like if you're making payments in a market these days, it's probably going to be a digital interaction, a digital exchange, right?
yeah,
You give them some sort of like promise to pay them through like credit card or whatever, and then they mail you the thing. So the fact that Bitcoin is like this digitally native, like first ever protocol that really figured out how to do peer-to-peer exchange in a decentralized way like that, that's really special. And I don't know, yeah, it makes me excited to be able to work in this space. The other thing about Bitcoin, like working at Blockstream, especially with like Christian Decker and Rusty Russell, and like all the really great, there's like tons of so many amazing engineers in Bitcoin, like Greg Maxwell, Peter Willer, some of like the classics, but it's not even like it's just the caliber and quality of engineering and really caring about like their work and the impact of their work and doing things the right way because it's the right way to do them, not because it's going to like earn them the most money or it's going to get the product shipped faster. Like it's like, no, we need to like figure out how to solve this problem because it's a fun, interesting, hard problem. And if we figure out how to do this in the right, most efficient way, that'll make Bitcoin usable by like millions more people and allow people to preserve their privacy while also keeping their Bitcoin safe. Like, I don't know, there's just like a lot of really cool, interesting protocols that some really, really brilliant people, and it wasn't just Satoshi, it's been over the past decade and a half, it's been like a huge cohort of brilliant people who really care about Bitcoin and, this ability to transact peer to peer in a decentralized way. contributing to this project and making it better. And I don't know, that makes like, it's fun. It's a fun, I guess it's like the community aspect, right? Of getting to hang out with these really talented devs who share like my values for the most part. Okay.
I know, and I think about like low time preference, high time preference, and that's like you were just talking about that. And I think right now we're navigating, certainly the younger generation is so used to like instant gratification, ship it, break it, do the whole thing instead of like take some time like Michelangelo and make something that's like going to be preserved for generations, and I think that ethos, that mindset is very evident in Bitcoin, and certainly with you guys who are building everything on the back end. You're not just like, oh, let's just get it out, get it out, get it out, let's make some money. It's like, no, we want to make it last, and we want to make it durable and solid and unfuckable with.
And things done right will make their own legacy, if that makes sense. Like if
Yeah.
you, and I feel like working with Rusty has been such a great opportunity for me because you do it the right way. You build it like such that it's really the best thing, the most usable, like the most thought through, and has the most care put into it. And it will become the thing that people will use and will value and treasure for like, years. Like artisanship and craftsmanship isn't dead, and it's still valuable, and it is the only thing that makes this world a better place. It sounds like maybe not that, but like it's like, like building a better quality product is literally I think that's a way to grow a project rather than, there's a lot of ways to do marketing, etc. But quality over all else. And I think Bitcoin is a truly quality project, I guess I'm saying. It has its warts, it's got its opportunities for brilliant people to come in and suggest improvements, etc. But yeah, it's a pretty beautiful and impressive like protocol that Satoshi came up with. And I think it is kind of like a honor to get to be able to work in that ecosystem and with people that care about it so much as they do, and really are mission driven rather than like anything else. So I think yeah, it's cool. It's a cool ecosystem. The other thing about Bitcoiners, like looking across the ecosystem, and now that, hang on, like it's a second, I'm going to come back to this thing you said about younger generation, because I do think there's some interesting things to say about them, especially around like crypto in general, and some of what we see in like politics these days with crypto, etc. But the people in Bitcoin across the board, and maybe we can get into this more when we talk about like the workshop game that I've been working on for the last couple of years, but they're all tend to be like extremely independent thinkers, right? Like people don't get into Bitcoin without being a little bit of a sort of person that can make decisions for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And those people tend to be the sorts of friends, the people that I want to be friends with, right? Or the sorts of people that are like the most interesting to spend time with and build a community with. And so it's like, okay, you only get one life, you only get one opportunity to choose which community or which cult, so to speak, you join.
Yeah.
Like, and I have maybe a weird take on the modern world that like the only way you're going to survive is by joining a cult. Picking a tribe, picking a community that you're
Yeah.
part of and that you're building with and contributing to. So like, and I don't know, I've been very happy in the Bitcoin community because it is a lot of really smart, interesting people that care about the same things I care about, and that tend to be like really good at making their own decisions for the right reasons and wanting to do the right thing, both for themselves, but also for like their families and like their communities in the long run. So like of all the different types of communities that you could join that exist, and I think there's a lot of them these days. There's doomer cults. There's like stuff in the news these days about some like rationalists that went crazy and are killing people. Like, okay, maybe that's a little dark, but there's the rationalist cults, there's the like crypto cults, like buy into like shitcoin Ponzi scheme doomerous stuff. There's the AI is going to kill us all, there's AI is going to save us, there's we're going to Mars, there's a lot of different people working on different projects. I don't know, but I'm pretty happy in the Bitcoin ecosystem and community. which is, building money that we as like people can continue to interact and have exchange and commerce between each other without having to involve anyone else. And so private commerce is the thing that we're preserving.
Yeah, and I think the a couple things just to touch on, like the cult thing, because we hear that a lot with people who are like, "Oh my God, Bitcoin's a cult." It's like everything's a cult, guys, and so just get used to it, okay? Whether it's politics, religion, I'm a carnivore, or blah blah blah, whatever. You can go, throw that label on it. But the reality is, like you said, it's as humans, like we have a survival instinct to be a part of a tribe, and so it's like,
Yeah.
which tribe do you want to be a part of? Do you want to be a part of the instant gratification tribe that doesn't understand how to build quality and take time to do things, or do you want to be a part of the tribe, the cult, the community that is like, yeah, you've got to do that proof of work, you've got to take time, and it's like you can't grow a giant maple tree in 12 days. Like, you can't keep digging up the seed and go, are you growing yet? Are you grown yet? No, it takes time. And so I think, combining that mindset of like how nature takes time to grow, forests and grow beautiful things. It's like, this is what I think Bitcoiners do, but we are also doers. It's not just philosophizers, and it's not just, okay, let's just be extractive with how we operate. Like, we really are, in my experience, and it seems like yours as well, like we're like puzzle solvers and people who want to like go, like, let's go make some cool shit, and let's go make the world a better place with the cool shit that we're building, and whatever it might be, and so for you, like, again, like, I mean, and, I'm not like into the like, oh, men versus women or whatever, but you're obviously a female in the the developer space. So I know, just even going to any Bitcoin meetups, it's like me plus 40 dudes, and then when I go to like the devs meetups, it's me and 40 dudes, and so and so what is that like for you? Because I go because I just want to listen and learn, but you're actually like doing something that involves like being a developer. Like, what's that like working as I mean, you pretty much are one of the only women, and you're a leader of no less, as a developer in the Bitcoin space.
I think it's one of those things where like getting older is actually helpful. Sounds weird. Like if you you have enough experience under your belt and you've seen a lot of the kind of patterns of interaction as being like a woman in a mostly masculine space, that there's
Yeah.
very little of other people's behavior that surprises me these days, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I entered engineering, which is definitely more masculine in terms of engineering than, even iOS or web dev or like that kind of stuff. I feel like it was like, it's harder when you're new because you don't realize that a lot of the kind of, I'm just going to call it energy maybe, that other people put on your plate isn't about you, it's about them and their relationship to you as a woman in their space, or their own ego, or what they're hoping to get out of the space, and how they hope that you can either support them or whatever. I don't know. So I think learning to like make it, whatever interactions you end up having with people, not be less personal in some ways, but like kind of just getting a little bit of distance from some of the, it's not easy to be a minority in anything.
Yeah.
I've talked to I was hanging out with Will Catherine, who's an incredible developer
Totally.
who I worked with him for a while on Core Lightning, and then he now does some really just amazing engineering over on the Nostr ecosystem. Like, Will's going to build the protocols and the databases and the data structures that Nostr needs to scale. Like, that is what he's working on, right? And I was talking to him, and he was, he kind of asked me this similar question. And he was like, I went to this like women at this event that was like all women. I can't remember what it was. And he was like, whoa, that was just, he was like, it was weird. Like, there's just this like energy where you're like, oh, I'm different. So I don't know. I guess I'm saying you get used to it. I also think like I was very, very lucky in that my career started at a place where I was not in the minority. So like I went to this thing called Hacker School, and there was 40% women. That was my
Oh,
first
cool.
engineering. Yeah. Well, I was part of the first cohort where they're like, we want more women. And I saw them kind of put it out. And they're like, we want more women. And I was like, okay, I can go be a woman engineer. Like, you want more women? Like, sure, I will answer
I'm
that
one.
call and show up. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm gonna do engineering stuff. You like want me there, I'll be there. So I think like maybe that's a good thing. Like if you're a community, I think there's a few things here that women tend to need to be invited if you want them to participate. And I think that men maybe don't realize that because most men you don't have to invite. Like one thing that's been really interesting to kind of watch, like working on Core Lightning, for example, is men will just show up in my DMs offering to help with stuff, like offering to help with conferences, offering to help with like anything that like I say I need help with. Like they just, I think, I don't know what it is about being a guy because I'm not one. I don't know what that experience is like, but it just seems like there's like the barrier to offering your desire to want to help to people, it just seems a lot lower. And so guys just don't seem to need invitations as much. They reach out proactively, and not all of them. And if you're a guy who doesn't reach out proactively, you should. If you're a woman who's not reaching out proactively, you also should. Like this is not like gender specific, whatever. But in general, like there's a couple of women that work on Core Lightning now. I'm one of them, and then Shahana is like kind of more. She's definitely full time and works at Blockstream. But both of us basically had to be like asked to work on the project by Rusty. Rusty's like, no, you'll be good at this. And we're like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, no, you're going to like try it and it's going to be good. And we're like, oh, okay, if you say so, I don't think that's in common. So, and like I had heard about Bitcoin for years before I got into it, but I only got into it because I got like invited to work on it as a job, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I think, when you're thinking about like involvement in the space, and if you're like, okay, how do we get more women? Well, having more than one woman is always good, but that's kind of a chicken and egg problem to solve. But the other thing is, you do have to make, I think, an active effort to invite them to participate.
I love that frame because like you're right. A lot of women, and I'm really, really pushy, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm showing up. I'm knocking on doors. What can I do? And I'm not a developer, but that's just my nature. But a lot of women are not that way. They're not like, yeah, put me up on the stage and let me talk and give me a microphone or show me how to do the thing. And it's true. And I think, and I wrote an article a couple years ago, and this, I don't want to offend anybody, but it was actually a really good article, but it was called Sperm Consciousness, and it was about like the difference between men and women, and because men have that like elbows out, they got to go get the egg, and women are more receptive, and we're used to being like, okay, come to mama, um and so and I always just wonder of like our natural energies or the traits of how we operate, because men are out there just, and they know like nobody's coming to save them. They have to go be that masculine energy, which we love. And, and so for women to kind of get into this space, it is nice to have like that invitation. I just started hosting and you should totally come, of course, anytime. We're doing at the Denver space, like a monthly women's meetup on the second Tuesday of every month. And the ladies love it because they're just like, oh, I can just chill and I'm not the only one in the room or, whatever. And we can all just talk about stuff and it's not over my head and I don't feel uncomfortable asking questions. And so, there's no, and, people are always like, oh, there's not enough women in Bitcoin. I'm like, there's a ton of women in Bitcoin, but we don't need to go like put a billboard out there and say that we're doing this, but the reality is it's like we have a different way of um, engaging with Bitcoin, and we think about like why Bitcoin is a great tool for peace, why Bitcoin is a tool for people to get out of abusive relationships, whether it's with a violent partner or a violent government, and so women are interested in that kind of stuff. And so it's nice to have more colors of the rainbow in the conversation, I think. But again, like you still like what you're doing is very, very unique and rare. Do you want to talk about, I want to see, like, what do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about Bitcoin plus events? Do you want to talk about Base 58? You want to talk about the workshop? Which one?
Yeah, let's talk about Base 58 in the workshop a bit.
Okay.
I feel a little guilty because I have really great grand plans for Base 58 and we did an amazing work, I feel like a few years ago, but within the last year, it's been a little bit on the back burner while I've been working on event stuff.
Can you tell people, like, so what is Base 58?
Yeah, so Base 58 is an engineering school I started that's really focused on teaching people about how the Bitcoin protocol works for engineering students. The idea being that, learning about Bitcoin and how it's engineered and how it's putting together and telling you like the engineering story behind Bitcoin. One makes you, there's a couple of reasons for this. One, understanding how it works makes you a much more powerful individual in the modern world because all of a sudden you understand the knobs and levers that exist in Bitcoin that are up for you to change, places that you can innovate and add on to. You understand why Bitcoin is the way it is. That gives you, a new language to like be like, okay, here's why we should change it to this way. Or, when you're working on your own problems, you have this like really, I think, pretty solid engineering understanding of another system that maybe you can apply to other things that you're working on. So, studying good engineering only is helpful for other engineering that you want to do. The other thing I think about understanding Bitcoin, which is I think so important for keeping Bitcoin a decentralized and a consensus-based system, is that in order to talk about proposals to change Bitcoin, you need to understand what people are proposing. And I would bet right now that of the proposals that people are making about how we want to change or update Bitcoin, maybe 5% or less of the people that are even technical Bitcoiners really understand what is being proposed and presented, right? And you can't have consensus, like true consensus, without understanding. And so that's why it's like, no, I need to like start working on this education piece because Bitcoin needs to stay a consensus-based system. People need to understand what they're agreeing to. It's like in Congress, you get these bills that are super long. No one knows what they're agreeing to, what's in it, etc. I don't know what that is. Hang on. I think someone's calling me. I'm gonna.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So the whole idea is that having better education resources available that are really like well done and give people like that confidence that they understand it and the ability to like go out and think deeply about what changes are happening or what they want to see Bitcoin move to and why that would be a good idea. That was kind of the reason for starting the school and writing the stuff down. It was also like, I was working on a project in Lightning where I really needed to understand how Bitcoin transactions work. And none of the resources out there were at the level that I needed them to be at. And it was like, okay, I'm just going to write what I wish existed when I was working on this. And to make it into really make it into a, what do you call it? Just a good like record of how Bitcoin works. I don't know.
And do you feel like, because obviously I was an entrepreneur, like I'm an entrepreneur and I'm working on a personal growth project and I want to like build something on Noster where you can zap people and everything's, over there and we've got courses, etc. And so Austin from Pleb Devs is doing some stuff. So I was like, oh, can I just white label what you're doing and kind of put my content in and just beta it, And so I think as entrepreneurs too, who are, we're still doing the same stuff that we're doing over in like legacy or the fiat system. It's like how much is enough to know, because we can obviously go down all these rabbit holes of like, oh, well, how does this work and how does this transaction go and what's the thing? Like, at,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think is like a good bare minimum for people to understand? Like, this is what's out there for you to, integrate into your, whether you're a consultant or a coach or an educator or whatever, like what's a bare minimum that you think, or you have e-commerce, you're trying to sell stuff, right? Like what's the bare minimum for folks to understand Bitcoin and how Lightning
This
and
is a
Nostr work?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I don't have a good answer to. I'm not really sure, but I would say that this kind of starts getting into like why I made the workshop, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the workshop is this hands-on, in-person 2-hour game or like, I don't know, classroom activity that really lets you understand whenever you're making an on-chain Bitcoin transaction, what's happening. one of the nice things about knowing what's happening is that I think it gives you power and confidence when you're using the system to receive payments as someone who's vendor, or using the system to like hold it part of your corporation's wealth as like a corporate treasury. You really have like a better understanding of where your Bitcoins sit in the ecosystem, like in the system, and makes all of the, like, again, like Bitcoin is not like anything else that exists. It's not like you can, I mean, the thing what's great about it is everyone comes in at the same power level, so to speak. But it means that there's a lot of new stuff to learn. And so what I really like about this workshop that we put together, we call it the Bitcoin. It used to be called the LARP. So maybe you've heard of the Base 58 LARP before. We renamed it at the beginning of this year because I wanted it to be a little more accessible when you hear the name, like, oh, that's something that I want to do or try out.
Do you have
We're calling it.
the box with you? Like, I don't know where you're at
No, they're all at the
at
office
the
and I'm at
studio.
home
Okay, got
today.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell people like what, like, because when I got to go visit you in December, I think it was, and you took some time to show me what was up, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I can touch a Bitcoin transaction. Like, how does this work with the string and the everything? Like, you really
Yeah.
you touched on a different learning style and a different personality, because there's obviously, folks who can look at, charts and graphs and see stuff, or they can read a giant white paper document, whatever, and okay, great, they got it. But then there's those of us who are like, I'm a visual learner, or I'm a tactile learner, and I need to feel it. And so how did you come to this? Like, cause it's really remarkable what you created. And I want to, cause I don't think you're selling it
um
enough.
I'm
It's
not.
not that you're selling it, but like, it's a really amazing, kit that anybody here, whoever's listening on, we've got, I guess, 341 people watching right now, 45. Yay. I love you guys. Like, if you're doing a Bitcoin meetup, if you're doing an after school program, if you just want this for yourself, like, you can order this kit, and you can learn like how Bitcoin transactions are made, and play a game
Yes,
and do
and
it
how they
with,
get mined and how
yeah,
they get into blocks
yeah,
and where they go and how do blocks get made. If I make a Bitcoin transaction, how does it get into a block? These are all questions that everyone should know. This should not be secret alpha or like private information. Like every school kid should know how Bitcoin works because it is going to be the backbone of our financial system.
yeah,
And it's going to be the system, hopefully, that we use to transact peer to peer in the future, right? Like, anyway, so yeah, you kind of asked where the game came from. A friend of mine got me into this personality types thing over COVID called Myers-Briggs.
yeah,
Maybe some of your listeners are familiar with. I took my first Myers-Briggs test in college, and there's a certain, like, the way that Myers-Briggs works is it kind of divides you up based on are you introvert or an extrovert. How do you learn, how do you experience the world? Do you experience it through like frameworks and like white papers, or do you experience it through senses? Like, this is a beautiful flower, this is like a delicious meal, how do you make decisions? Do you use your feelings to make decisions, or do you use thinking to make decisions? And then
yeah,
the last one is, do you spend more time making decisions, or do you spend more time experiencing the world? Is kind of like the four letters.
yeah,
So most Bitcoiners tend to be something that you call intuitives, which are, they tend to really understand more abstract thinking patterns. Like, so understanding Bitcoin is something that you really need to be more of an intuitive to really get. But if we want Bitcoin to be accessible to the majority of the population, which is not that, and even kids, right? You really need to make a system that makes it sensory, that brings it into something that you can touch. There's a really famous math program, which I think is like the Singaporean math system, which is famous for how well students that do this program come out for like learning math.
what is
The
it called,
first year is all, I think it's a Singapore like math. I think it's
Singapore?
Singapore.
Okay,
Yeah, like the Singapore like national math like curriculum.
okay,
Um, it's pretty famous, I think, for like, but the very first year is all about touching things. Like before you get in, because math is like this, right? It's a very like you can touch objects
yeah,
and see them, put them together as addition, and take them apart as subtraction. But as you go up the curve on math, it gets very abstract and it's very like in your head, numbers, charts, figures, whatever, right? So this is like, okay, Bitcoin is kind of at that other end of the math spectrum curve of like this up in your head number, chart, figure. Like, how does proof of work work? I don't know. There's machines and they're like doing
Stuff's
math
going on in the
problems.
black box over there that I don't get. Yeah, and
I don't know,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So the idea was that we would try and bring it all the way down to your hands. So make all of Bitcoin, the entire on-chain. So it's the most accurate to exactly how Bitcoin works, hands-on activity that you can do. Generally run it with like 10 to 20, but you can have up to like 40 or 50 people doing it at the same time. And it's really fun because you learn about what is decentralized computing. What does it mean to be on a decentralized network? What does it mean to have proof of work? What does it mean to verify a block? What does it mean to be looking for like a nonce or whatever? Yeah, so it's like a very like cool hands-on paper and pencil. You have little baskets for putting your transactions in. So if you've ever been to mempool.space, we learn about what the mempool is. Independent of that, we learn about what a Coinbase is. It's not an exchange. They just stole the name from Bitcoin. Like, you learn about all the parts of what makes Bitcoin work. You know, where did new Bitcoin come from? How do miners make money? Like that kind of thing. But it's all on pen and paper. You have to be able to do some math, and it is a bunch of steps, like kind of accounting stuff, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin really is an accounting system.
Yeah, it's a ledger, but
It's
people,
an accounting system.
it's such a, they think it's so much more scary than it is, and it's, I mean, and I get intimidated. I know when you showed me that, the way that it was working, I was like, okay, do it again. I don't get it, like, you know, and I think that's normal because, like you said earlier, it's like there's nothing like this. Our brains don't have like a comparison thing to go, oh, well, this is similar. There's nothing that's been created on Earth like this ever, and so at least to the scale, obviously. And so I think it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's like being patient, you know, like I was just talking with somebody this morning who, um, he's a big music festival producer. We were talking about like trying to get, like some Zapathon type stuff during some of his things so that some of his artists can get some splits and they can learn about Bitcoin. And he's like a really, really intelligent, creative man. And he's just like, I'm kind of scared of Bitcoin. Like I don't know what to do. I just get a little Bitcoin and it goes over here. And I'm like, eh. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it doesn't have to be scary. Like it's totally fun and it's cool. And, you know, creatives kind of interpret it in a certain way, you know, because they have a use case in addition to, you know, store of value. It's like, whoa, you can do lightning splits or whatever and get, oh my gosh, like everybody, my sound guy, my guitar player, my drummer, we all just got some zaps, and look, we get to all go out and buy some beer or whatever, you know, like, so I think it's just like, you know, whoever we're speaking with, it's a fun exercise in empathy and compassion and trying to understand like where they're coming from. And like the fact that you created this workshop, this game, you know, because that creates a lot of empathy for people who want to touch things, you know, and not just look at the screen. So I'm just like, you are the
Right.
queen. Yeah.
Dude, like, so I have a lot of devs. So the really fun thing about the game is it's so accurate to the protocol that like newbies have a lot of fun because they get to learn how it works, and like it's doable. Like you can touch the things. It's like just follow the things, you will be successful. But like very experienced Bitcoin core devs have a lot of fun because they're like, oh my God, this is the protocol that I work on. Like this is fun. I'm gonna try and break the game now because I know how the things work. But yeah, I think it's rare to come up with a level of game that just like crosses that many levels of experience, and anyone who comes to it has a good time. I think it's funny that you mentioned the fear thing because it's one of my favorite things about teaching because, like, you know, my Bitcoin transactions class is challenging, but it's also doable. Like, you can do it. It's hard, but like, you know, but it's so much fun to watch people come over their fear, and like the other side of it is like so much like joy and empowerment and like, oh, that's what's going on. You're like, oh, I'm on the other side of this like thing that I really was curious about but didn't know how to get to the right, you know, just how to get my questions answered. I didn't even know what questions to ask. Yeah, so like I did a workshop in New York a few years ago for some of the people that now were, I think it was the Generation Bitcoin crew. I don't know if they're still doing it, but this was a few years ago. And they brought their families, like their aunts and uncles and moms and dads. And there may be like 15, 20 of us in like a small room in New York. And you could just see like the kind of fear on these people's faces of like they know Bitcoin is complicated. They know they don't understand Bitcoin, right? Like it's, they know they don't know it, and that's kind of all they know, and that's enough to be scary. And so like, but it's so much fun to like, there's a part where you stamp a card with like an accepted thing before you, so when you have a transaction, you have to validate the transaction before you put it in your mempool. And when you finish validating it, you stamp it with an approved, if that makes sense. There's like a stamping thing. And it was so much fun to watch, like, you know, these people who come in scared, they start going through it, their eyes light up when they hit that approve thing, because it's just such a nice thing to be able to like stamp, like a physical stamp, like, yeah, I got it. And then later in the game, someone had a transaction and they were trying to put it in a basket, which stands for the mempool, but they hadn't verified it yet. And this person that had so much fun like verifying it was like, no, you can't. I gotta like stamp it first. It must be stamped. Like, you didn't go through the rules. Like, I am now. And like, you know, it's just fun to watch people like, you know, not assume responsibility, but like they do, like they learn the system and they get excited about it. And then it's like, they're like, no, you gotta like follow the rules. Like, there are rules about how this works. Like, I don't know. It's just, it is really fun. You know, they go from being scared to like all of a sudden like master and commander of like this particular part.
Well, and the
like,
fact that you create,
control.
yeah, and it's like, because you're I'm going to make up a word. You're humanifying the experience, because you're, you know, you're allowing the people to be like the machines, and like, this is your role if you're you know, and so that is a really cool thing, because we feel disconnected and uncertain and like, I don't, you know, and so the fact that you brought it down to this level where the individuals get to participate and be part of the experience that way, it's just, it's unique. It's like I said, you're a double unicorn. You're not just a unicorn. You're a double unicorn, and I just love that about you. And so, okay, so let's tell people like what's going on for you in the events, because I want to honor your time. I know, you know, you said you hadn't been feeling so great, so I want to honor you. What's going on? We've got BTC plus plus events coming up
Yeah.
in Brazil.
Yeah. So not just like, you know, this Bitcoin, the school stuff is amazing. And I've got, you know, we've got a lot of cool stuff happening there. Hopefully more this year, depending on how I'm able to like spread my time out. But I also run this event series called Bitcoin Plus Plus, which is an international Bitcoin conference series for technical and open source contributors. We're the most international, I think, Bitcoin conference that exists. We did 3 events in 3 different countries last year. We were in Austin, we were in Buenos Aires, and we were in Berlin. This year I got a little ambitious, and we're going to try and do 6 events in 6 different countries. I might be dead at the end of the year.
No, you're not.
No,
Dude. You're gonna have all of us. We will be the wind beneath your wings. Okay, we will
like,
help you.
yeah, either Bitcoin plus plus scales or Bitcoin plus plus dies. We will find out. No, it's a sink or swim year, I think. But no, but it's really great. I mean, the only reason I'm doing this many events is because it made sense, which sounds crazy, but it was like it feels like there's community and there's people in all these places that will make it such that I can be successful at running an event there. And yeah, so we're doing it. We're going to Brazil next month. This is so Bitcoin plus plus, traditionally every event has a theme. The very first one that we did, I invited all of the Bitcoin educators that I knew. Most of them actually happen to live in Austin, which is fun.
Cool.
And then we've covered privacy with on-chain privacy, which is kind of like coin joins, that kind of stuff. We did layer 2s before layer 2s were cool. We did eCash last year. But yeah, so in Brazil, we're going to be working on hacking. It's hackathon. It's the longest event we've ever done. It's going to be 4 days. We're going to do 2 days of workshops and lectures, and then 2 days of hacking and building. I'm really excited. I think one of the things about the Bitcoin plus plus brand, which is one of my favorite things about it, is that I feel like we do as best a job we can at getting both local Bitcoiners from the local community who are building and working in Bitcoin to come and show what they're working on, as well as getting Bitcoiners from all over the globe to come and share what they're working on with that local community, if that makes sense. So I'm super excited about the Bitcoin Plus Plus in Florianopolis, because we're getting people from all kinds of great projects are going to come. Super Testnet's going to come down. We've got this guy named Stu from CBD who's been working on some really fun stuff with covenants. He's going to show off. We've got Nicholas Golin, who's working on an independent implementation of the Lightning Protocol, who's a Brazilian who gets to come show off his work. I'm very, very excited about doing it in Brazil. It's going to be our first Brazil event. Vinci which is the largest Bitcoin nonprofit in Brazil, is a huge sponsor of the event. They're going to be sending, they're doing their first ever residency program, and they're going to be sending pretty much like all of the students in the residency to it. So it'll be great. They're going to meet all these great people from all over the world who are coming to Brazil, which is, it's kind of difficult to convince people to come to Brazil, let me tell you, because it's a long flight for them. Yeah. I learned that devs don't like long flights, which is fine. I I travel a lot, and I'm kind of at the point where like I will hop on a plane and like be like, oh, 12-hour flight. Okay, guess we're gonna be in the seat for a while. Like I just don't even think about like how long is it I need to go to this place. I'm just gonna go, right? But I found that most people aren't like that. They like actually don't like they're like, no, I don't want to sit on 12 for a plane for 12 hours, not just one, but like 2 8-hour flights. Anyways. So, but we do have people coming, which I'm very excited about. So it should be good. Yeah, we got people coming over from Argentina. I'm blanking out on who else is. There's lots of people. I think one of my friends, Jeff, is working on this project called White Noise for Nostr stuff. It's gonna be really fun. I'm excited about pairing with him. My hackathon project is going to be helping Jeff figure out how to send his packets through the Lightning Network. No. So I've got a hack. I'm hoping that I will be have time so I can contribute to the hackathon stuff too and work on a project with people. So it should be fun. It's a beautiful city in Brazil. It's got gorgeous beaches. We're going to be there in the summer, which is the nicest time to visit. Hoping to be able to connect us really closely to the Bitcoin community there, and as well as like the hacking community. Florianopolis just got named the #1 city for startups in Brazil.
No way, cool.
Yeah, it's like it's the city, I think, to really be doing this kind of frontier of Bitcoin exploration.
And so if people want to participate, like, I mean, because I'm not a developer, and I'm not anybody who understands code. I'm a business person, and I'm obviously a weirdo creative person. Like, like what would anybody who is in my field, like, be like, would it benefit them to go to any of these kind of events, or is it more like developer events?
I think our main audience is really developers and people in the developer ecosystem. I'm like, I think if you're a VC and you want to come meet people and you're looking for projects to invest in, or if you are someone who isn't technical yet but wants to be more technical, I think these are like definitely good projects and opportunities. But if you're just on the business side, it's probably going to be a lot of over your head stuff. And the devs come because it's their other dev friends that they get to hang out and talk with.
Totally. How do you, you just brought up VCs, which I think is an important point. Like, for people who are investors, who want to help move projects forward, obviously you guys are going to have like a plethora of these cool projects that people are working on. Like, how do folks get funding, to go from, oh, this is a great concept, to, okay, let's go implement this thing and scale it and make it a real a viable business?
I think that's where business people like yourself definitely come in. I haven't seen, I have to be honest, like that part of the ecosystem isn't something I've spent a lot of time thinking about or trying to get involved in. It's on my roadmap for this year to figure out a way that we can better serve the venture capital needs in Bitcoin. One of those things is like, maybe it's a newsletter about where we're reporting on interesting things in Bitcoin and just kind of putting all the cool frontier stuff that we're showcasing at our conferences in the inbox of venture capitalists, etc. So it's like, how can we as Bitcoin Plus Plus better serve these projects? Maybe it's making them more visible. I'd really love to get more VCs involved in sponsoring the event and funding the hackathon. So if you're a venture capitalist firm and wants to, we're working on like maybe figuring out or it's definitely on my to-do list to figure out how Bitcoin Plus Plus can like serve VCs as like part of the ecosystem and our stakeholders. So one part of that would be, if you're a VC, and I would love to talk to you about how Bitcoin Plus Plus can be a better, like more useful to what you're trying to do in Bitcoin.
And well, I think about like, okay, so we've got like Mike Muzz, who's got Thunder Funder and Lightning Ventures, right? We've got obviously Jeff and those guys who are doing Ego Death. We've got Wolf Accelerator. And so to me, you guys,
31.
it seems like
Yeah.
chocolate and peanut butter. Like they should be somehow at the end of your hackathons there, whether it's virtually or in person, and then having sort of a Shark Tank kind of thing, have a bit tank, and then have all of the folks. You know what I mean? And then it's just like, hey, check it out. And then I don't know. I just feel like that's like a cool. I always say chocolate and peanut butter when cool things mix, because of that old, Reese's peanut butter cup thing. But I just wonder, like, that could be something that could, because it's great that you're bringing all these folks together to do the hackathons and get their projects going. But then it's like, well, y'all need some money. Like, you need some money to
What's the
help
next?
like put the
Yeah.
fertilizer on the seed so it can grow. So maybe that could be a
Yeah.
neat, I don't
Or
know.
even getting open stats more involved in
Totally.
how
Yeah, of course. And so,
it's like the hackathon projects that people do aren't typically like a pitch competition. It's like, here's a thing that I've written a new protocol, or here's a way I've contributed to an existing open source project. So I think our hackathons tend to be a lot more engineering focused than product focused.
okay, got it. But who
Yeah,
knows?
which I
Maybe
think
you
is
do a
like,
product focused one, and then that could help people with their dreams. Like, and I don't know. I'm a nerd, and I'm always trying to like
no, so
grow
I'm
the
hoping we'll
thing.
have an announcement about that soon. Doing
Okay,
a more product focused hackathon for Bitcoin Plus Plus. But traditionally, the ones at our events tend to be pretty. Yeah, I guess I'd have to go back, but yeah, they tend to be pretty like protocol-y focused. Is
cool.
that true? I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, which is super important because that's one of the pieces of the puzzle, right? One of the pieces of the temple or the masterpiece, right? And so that's like the most important part. If that stuff doesn't work, your products and services aren't going to work.
Exactly.
So I think that's super cool. So for anybody who's listening, if you can't see the screen, you guys can go to BTC all spelled out .dev and check out what's going on for what's coming up in Brazil. And you've got something in Austin. And I know you've got other events
Yeah.
going on.
I'm
What are
working on
you
getting
said?
the website updated. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
check
I'm
check
sorry.
the website out, you guys, and go if you guys are developers, or if you want to, like, what would you say to somebody who's listening right now, um, who might be like a developer, but maybe not a Bitcoin developer or a Lightning developer or an Oster? Like, what would you say to them about coming to some of your events?
You should do it. You should come. Come meet friends. Come ask questions in person. Figure out. I mean, I think that the coolest thing about coming to a Bitcoin Plus Plus event is you get to see the level of engineering and like, that there are badasses working in the space that want to answer your questions and help you figure out what they're doing. I don't know. I think it's good to go to things that you don't understand 100% at. Like if you understand 10% of it, that's like completely a win.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember going to my first bit devs when I started. Like I got into Bitcoin and didn't really know anything, and I would go to these events and just be like, I don't know what these people are talking about. That
Totally.
changes, right? Like over
Yeah.
time, you just keep showing up and you keep hearing things and you ask questions and you like figure out what they're talking about eventually. I think that's just part of the learning process. Um, and I like to think of Bitcoin Plus Plus event, or like check out our, like, we have a YouTube where we've been posting all of our talks. You should definitely, if you're able to, check that out. We do a couple panels so you can see what the panels are like, as well as more technical talks. Those are all, I think that's also a great resource for figuring out who's working on what in the space.
Cool. Okay, awesome. So if you're listening, we've got 418 people right now listening, apparently. Like, if you're new developers or old developers, like, please make sure you guys go support Nifty Nei and her projects, and then get involved. And that's what the coolest part, right? Like, you don't need the invitation, like you said earlier. Just you're invited. The fact that it's happening means you're invited. um, yeah, I think it's super cool. And then so for everybody, like, I notice you're on Nostr, I think a little bit more than on X, but either one, like, people can find you on x.com at Nifty Nei or on a
You
Nostr.
should follow both because they get, independent content. No, I'm kidding.
Right on.
Like I don't, yeah.
Okay, so any last thoughts or words for our wonderful listeners and people who are getting involved in Bitcoin? How can people get, like, if they want to do like the Bitcoin at workshop, like, how can they get a hold of one of those boxes?
This is a great, send me an email at hello@base58.school. I'm working on getting the website out. I've been saying this for over a year, but it's really going to happen this
Okay,
time.
hold on. So
So
it's
you can
hello
check it out
at base
at
58.
58.school.
Hold
Send me
on.
an email. We can send you one. We have them in stock. I'm just really bad about it. We're working on the website. I don't know why it's taking, I do know why it's taking so long, but I've been busy with other stuff. But yeah, I would love, like, one of my goals for this year would be amazing to get more workshops happening all around the globe, and in classrooms in America. I want every school student in America doing a Bitcoin at workshop before they graduate. It would be like, if I had one like wish for the workshop project, it would be that it is something that every American gets to experience before they turn 20, 21. I don't know.
That is an awesome dream. Well, what about, like, do you know, I mean, Daniel Prince, and he does all the stuff with homeschooling. And do you know, Scott and Tally, they have Free Market Kids. They do a lot of stuff with homeschooling also. Um, and then I don't know what he's doing, if he's still doing a lot of stuff, but there was a organization called BSTEM, and they were doing like after school programs, kind of like STEM education. So
Got it.
those three organizations, and obviously Daniel, whatever, he's like all into the homeschooling world. Those, could at least like start getting those folks getting the Bitcoin at workshop into their hands, so that they can do these projects with these kids, in and out of school. I think that's like, it's super important and it's needed, and they're always, people are always looking for those kinds of projects, for their curriculum and whatnot. And so this is obviously right in alignment with all of these folks. So those could be some opportunities of, to get them in at least some hands.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Cool. All right, sister, I am gonna wish you a sweet nap. I know you. Thank you for taking this time to do this interview, and I know you're not feeling 1,000%. A lot of people have been. This has been a January with people getting the flu or the cold or whatever. So I hope you get better
I've
soon.
been, yeah, been joking with my friends I caught bird flu now. But this is the most sick I think I've been since I got COVID in January 2021. Like
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Yeah, it's legit. So go I don't know, drink some bone broth, do whatever you do. And feel better. And then I hope you guys have the best time, seriously, down in Brazil. That's going to be such a great trip.
it's
Um
gonna be great. It's gonna be
yeah,
so good.
super cool. And thank you again so much. And thanks for all the work you're doing. And I know, like, 98% of it's a giant labor of love. It's very difficult to do this work. You're not making $1 trillion being a developer and doing all this stuff and as an educator. So I really, really honor you and appreciate the work that you're doing out there. And it's very well received and needed.
Thanks, Valerie. Yeah, and hopefully we'll get to scale this year and see the community grow and the number of people that get impacted by it. And adoption of Bitcoin is, on a monetary sense, is one thing, but understanding of Bitcoin, I think, is the real, like, next level up.
It is, and it's like that, like you said, like that conceptualization of like, "Oh, this is how it works," and then you just have a little
Yeah.
bit more confidence of like, "Yeah, this is actually where I wanna direct my resources and energy versus this thing out here that I don't understand." And so I think the way that you're doing it is very, very useful uh, to help people have that level of confidence. So thank you. Yay.
Yeah. Cool.
Yay. All right. So thanks you guys so much for tuning in, and make sure you guys go follow Nifty Nei on X and on Nostr, and go check out btc++.dev and learn about Bitcoin. And you don't need an invitation. This is your invitation. So show up.
Yeah, I hope to see you all in Brazil. It's going to be a really good time. Like,
Yeah,
really
for
good
sure.
time.
All right, hun. Thanks so much. Peace, love, and warm
Yeah.
aloha to everybody. And thank you so much for taking your time. And I hope you feel so much better